both trauma needs to be acknowledged by both groups. There's two things that need to be true for this ever to be resolved peacefully.
You're right.
Palestinian self-determination and Israel's right to have secure borders.
Zionism
as long as you ignore that, there will always be war. Palestinians will always die, and you will continue to make money from it.
Ethan. Okay, Ethan. No, Ethan.
Hasan. Is this what you do whenever you're trying to avoid Ethan? Hasan, are you hallucinating?
Ethan?
Hasan? Sheesh, so this is why Hasan stopped debating, eh? Dude just can't answer a good question without trying to interrupt so the audience doesn't hear it. Or act like his opponent is crazy or obsessed. It's actually just quite unbearable to listen to, and kind of funny coming from someone that sees destiny behind every corner. Like, look, guys, I'm not the defend Israel or Palestine guy. Frankly, I just wish our tax dollars would stop going to both of them. But all things considered, I think Ethan got the best of Hasan the other night, because he shined a light on the fact that every time this guy got boxed into a corner, he would never give a serious answer. He would just laugh it off or say Ethan is hallucinating or something like that. Like, if you're a fan of gaslighting, you might have thought that Hasan, totally destroyed Ethan. But just check out how evasive this guy is when Ethan pins him down on Hasan lying about him working with the ADL.
I'll quote, he worked with the ADL to make Zionists a protected class on Twitch. Now that is an outright lie.
I don't think it's an outright lie.
I worked with the ADL.
Took credit over it, didn't you?
Sorry. I worked with the ADL. What does that mean?
Yeah, as in worked alongside. I don't think you're in the ADL.
Oh, that's what you meant when you said I worked with the ADL. I worked beside them, just incidentally together. You didn't mean that I worked with them privately to get people banned. Of course not.
No, I do think that.
Didn't you say you choose your words very carefully?
Alongside the ADL.
You just told me briefly ago, you choose your words very carefully, Hasan.
Not always. I'm famously...
Okay, we're walking that back. Sometimes I speak out the side of my mouth when I say you work with the ADL. So. Here you are again repeating the lie with Steiny on video. Go ahead. You had time
constantly come after me when his knows I'm not anti-Semitic and making these inferences that I am, and partnering with the ADL and
partnering with the ADL. You want to unpack that one there, buddy?
Yeah. Again, partnering with the ADL. That is precisely what took place.
I have never spoken to the ADL, so what does that mean?
I'm not saying you directed the ADL
Do you know
to take
how
action.
silly you
Well, actually,
look?
you know what? I am kind of saying that. I am implying that you directed the ADL to take action.
For Mr. Precise words, say that. Don't say you're partnered with the ADL. Do you understand? You said partnered with the ADL. Me, a Jewish man, you accuse, without any evidence at all, of being partnered with the ADL. You're now trying to rewrite history and say, I said you were working besides them. You are a liar.
What are you talking about?
You are a virulent fucking liar.
These are hysterical hallucinations of a person who desperately wants all of his critics to be anti-Semites so he can feel comfortable
glad this is on record.
in the unique position that he has created for himself.
I'm so glad this is on record.
Hysterical hallucinations. It's pretty clear Hasan is playing into the whole narrative that Ethan's mental health is declining, so he doesn't have to engage with any of the points Ethan is making. Look, I don't even like the ADL, but I could see exactly what Hasan is implying when he says Ethan is working with the ADL. And let's be real, Hasan knows it as well. But if he engages with Ethan's point seriously, he's gonna look bad. So his only option is to throw out the "you're hallucinating" bit and laugh it off. And if Hasan was serious with himself, he would realize that when he said these are hysterical hallucinations of someone that wants all of his critics to be anti-Semites, that could literally be applied to Hasan in all of his orbiters like Frogan. They desperately want to hide behind the veil of supporting Palestine and not be criticized for their actions, and simply imply that anyone that says anything about their psychopathy is just some rabid Zionist, even though Ethan agrees with these people on like 90% of the problem. Anyway, let's take a look at another disagreement they had later on about the exodus of Jews from Iraq and why that happened. And remember, we're not necessarily trying to get into the weeds of the history of this situation, but rather what Hasan does when caught trying to portray things maliciously to his advantage.
Does that sound voluntary?
Here, I sent you a clip.
No.
One of the most important scholars on this issue.
Oh my God!
Is
please.
an Iraqi Jew by the name of Avi Shlaim.
Yeah, I love this. Let's listen to him.
Okay, let's listen to it.
Yeah.
Jews were convinced that Israel had a hand in uprooting them. After the 1948 war, there was mounting popular hostility towards the Jews in Iraq. 5 bombs exploded in Jewish sites. The series of bombs created a panic which led more and more Jews to register to leave the country. I met an elderly friend of my mother's, an Iraqi Jew called Yaakov Karkukli, who had been in the Zionist underground. One member of his group, Yosef Basri, a very, very intelligent Jewish lawyer, and his assistant, Shalom Saleh Shalom, were responsible for 3 out of the 5 bombs. Basri's controller was an Israeli intelligence officer named Max Binet.
Let's grant that what he's saying is true and that 3 of the 5 bombs were done by Zionists, right? How does that explain 150,000 people leaving the fucking country? Thousands of years of civilization that have been there, 2,000 years, just picking up and leaving, almost virtually gone. How does that explain that?
Why is it that the Israeli government benefited from creating instability and making it seem as though these countries were uninhabitable? And why do you think that, despite the fact that Iraq and numerous other countries have offered Israelis or Jews a right to return,
because they were being
failed on the Israeli front for numerous reasons?
Let me tell you an inconvenient fact for you, Hasan.
Arrive at that conclusion.
Let me tell you an inconvenient fact.
I wonder why that happened.
Before
right
the
as
bombs
Israel
went
was
off,
being established.
Before the bombs went off, 100,000 of the 125 Jews were already registered to leave. Do you want to explain that?
Yes. Jews wanted to go to Israel, Ethan. They liked the
great.
idea
So let
of
me hear
going
what
to Israel.
Okay, so
you like Israel.
Yeah, you're
What
a
do you
liar.
mean?
You're a disgusting fucking propagandist liar. Here's what Avi Shlaim actually
My
said.
research, I established
Scumbag.
that one bomb was lobbed, one hand grenade was lobbed by a young activist in the Istiklal Party, which wanted to expel the Jews from Iraq and confiscate the properties. And another hand grenade was lobbed into the Masouda Shem Tov synagogue, and there 4 people were killed. And he was a criminal who had a grudge against the Jews, and it had nothing to do with the Mossad.
Did you hear that? The first 2 had nothing to do with the Mossad. But let's continue to listen to the respected scholar, Avi Shlaim, you fucking liar.
Hold on.
Nope, you listen to this fucking historian. Yes, you said they left by choice. They left because of Zionism. They left because they were being
They had a place
threatened.
to go,
Let's
and they
hear what
wanted to
your
go there.
respected historian has to say, you liar.
That's right.
Wait,
Even
listen.
if all this is true, the main reason for the exodus was not the bombs, it was persecution by the government. And I concede that. It's not part of my argument that the bombs were the main reason for the liquidation of this community. But my answer to my Zionist critics is, even if I knew for certain that not a single Iraqi Jew left Iraq to go to Israel because of the bombs, I would still think this is a real indictment of the state of Israel, because Israel was created to provide a safe haven for Jews, not to be harassing and threatening Jews in other countries.
By the way, he said, and I'll quote it for you, "We did not leave Iraq because we were Zionists. We left because we were no longer safe." He wrote that in his book, 3 Worlds. Have you read that book?
You are failing to comprehend a very important reason why I brought up Avi Shlaim, by the way. And
yeah, because you think he supports your claim, but he absolutely does not. That's why, because you're a fucking liar.
He absolutely
contend
does.
with what I said.
Hold on.
No.
Me explain.
Contend with what I'm saying. He said we did not leave Iraq because we were Zionists. We left because we were no longer safe. Do you want to explain what he meant by that?
Ethan,
explain what he meant by saying we didn't leave because we were Zionists. We left because we were no longer safe.
Iraqis are not Palestinian. You moron. You racist piece of shit.
What?
Because Iraq and the pan-Arabic nationalist movements that arise out of
Zionist out of your mind
is not about Palestinians.
Okay, so what did the Jews in Iraq have to do with Israel? You bigot. You are so out of your mind.
And then Iraqis,
dude, you screaming and grandstanding doesn't mean you're right.
Iraqi government's racism during the pan-Arabic nationalist movements as a vindication for why, or a comparison as to why Israel had to do the.
Do you think
you fucking racist piece of shit?
Thanks, Hasan.
Do you think Iraq? Do you think all Arabs have one fucking mind?
Why
is that what you think?
Were the Iraqi Jews leaving Iraq in fear?
Of course there were Iraqi Jews that left Iraq in fear. I've never said that there were no
Answer
Iraqi
the question.
Jews that left
You want to
Iraq
call
in
me
fear.
racist? Why were Iraqi Jews leaving to go to Israel?
Because you're a fucking moron.
That's why they left. They left because I'm a fucking moron.
That Arabs are
Hasan,
not one-minded.
you coward.
That there
you
were numerous
coward.
pan-Arabic nationalist
Answer the question. You're going to call me racist, but you won't answer. Why did the Iraqi Jews leave Iraq?
There were numerous
because of
reasons.
anti-Semitism. They hated Jewish people that had nothing to do with Israel. They were forced. They were chased out.
Now, to be frank with you, I'm not qualified to comment on this situation, but I sure did find it hilarious when Ethan used Hasan's favorite historian against him. That clearly shook the guy up quite a bit, which is why, again, he wouldn't answer Ethan's question straight up and had to go into this screaming ramble about racism. All so he can try to save a little bit of face and defend against the clip chimpers. I think that's all Hasan is really thinking about, which is why he calls Ethan crazy and hallucinating and patronizingly says his name in that tone over and over. He's just trying to take the wind out of his arguments because he knows most people don't know enough about the history of this situation, just like me. So if he just acts like Ethan is crazy every time he has a good point, then maybe they won't realize it. Just like he does when people bring out a clip of him saying something horrible. But personally, I think Ethan did quite a good job of hammering home his point in the face of Hasan just trying to derail him. Just like in this mic drop moment that people are saying, this is when Ethan officially won the debate.
Remember when you said you weren't a
50,000
Zionist?
riot.
Remember when you said you weren't a Zionist? These are direct Zionist talking
points.
This
is historical facts, literally spread by your very own Avi Schleim, who, if I'll quote it back to you, said, we didn't leave because we were Zionists. We did not leave because we were Zionists. We left because we were afraid.
Appropriate, Ethan. That's the difference. If you asked Avi Schleim whether it is comparable to say the Nakba and the 900,000 Jews that
I'm not defending the Nakba.
From separate countries, he would laugh at you.
Your failure
Do you not understand?
to acknowledge the trauma of both groups is the reason why you are a radical fucking propagandist liar. Both trauma needs to be acknowledged by both groups. There's two things that need to be true for this ever to be resolved peacefully.
You're right.
Palestinian self-determination and Israelis' right to have secure borders.
Zionism
as long as you ignore that, there will always be war. Palestinians will always die, and you will continue to make money from it.
Sheesh. Yeah, I mean, he got him there. In terms of content creators, Hasan has probably profited off this situation more than literally any other content creator. And Ethan is correct when he calls out Hasan as a radical propagandist liar. The guy will sidestep any sort of violence from people that are aligned with his side. Does Ethan do that? No. Ethan has called the Israeli government psychotically genocidal on multiple occasions. But Hasan is just so willing to hand-wave insane things like innocent people being kidnapped by Houthi pirates if he thinks it's beneficial for his side's fight. Look, I just don't think there's any other way of looking at this. This is just what Hasan does.
They hijacked a boat that had nothing to do with Israel? Like,
that's
bravo.
Not true. That's not true.
Really? What was that? What did it have to do with Israel?
It was literally owned by an Israeli.
It was partially owned. It's a big multi-conglomerate company that was partially owned by an Israeli.
Yes.
It was bound for for Turkey
It
from
doesn't matter.
India.
What do you mean?
There was
What do
they
you think
kidnapped
BDS is,
5
dude? What do you think
totally
BDS stands for?
unrelated Filipino prisoners and
wasn't owned by an Israeli, by the way, in your
year.
fucking video. Are you going to take that back too now? Now you admit that you were wrong on that
Take
part
what
too?
back? I didn't hear
Wow,
you.
what are we on? 4? 5? How many points have you actually backtracked
I don't know
on
I don't know what you're accusing me of. What was I wrong about?
You said in your video that it had nothing to do with Israel. You claimed that it wasn't owned by an
Partially
Israeli
owned by an Israeli
conglomerate.
guy?
You were wrong.
Partially owned by an Israeli guy? It's British owned. It's owned by a British company.
It is an Israeli
It's
conglomerate
owned by a
that owns
British
the
company.
ship.
So it's owned by a British
You literally
company.
claimed that it was owned by Isle of Man. It was an Isle of Man ship.
It is.
Like you think.
How much does he need to own of this business that owns this boat to justify? Is it 0.1? Is it 0.2? Is it 5%? How much?
I don't know, and I don't care because I think that
Well,
even
you
if they got some of the ships wrong, I still think they're on the right side. Don't you?
I mean, like, I agree with their...
I'm not even conceding on that front, by the way, because I do think that, once again, that was owned by an Israeli conglomerate.
No, it wasn't. That's an outright lie.
Video.
You're lying. It's not owned by an Israeli conglomerate. You're lying. That's an outright pathetic lie. I think what they're doing, their message is good. Their method is terrible.
Dude, let's ring up the fucking Al-Houthi family real quick. Tell us how you would stop a genocide. Those people, by the time you had released your context puke, those people had been released.
It was,
What
yeah,
would you
I
do,
remember.
Ethan?
I said they were prisoners for a year. I know they were released. It literally happened like the day I was finishing the video.
It's just you couldn't.
They were held. Were they held prisoner for a year? Were they held prisoner for a year? Were they held prisoner for a year? Were they held prisoner for a year?
Yeah, they were.
That's what I said. Thank you.
Yeah, they were held hostage.
So how's that help Israel? Taking a bunch of Filipino unaffiliated sailors hostage for a year.
Of deterrence?
Well, how's that deter Israel?
Indeed. How does kidnapping some random guys from some random country deter Israel? It's nonsensical and actually disgusting that Hasan can hand-wave some innocent guys being kidnapped for a year because he thinks it's a W for the fuck Israel crowd. And this guy wonders why people thinks he supports terrorism. Anyway, I'm surprised he didn't just say that was clipped from Destiny's Reddit or something, because we all know that's one of Hasan's favorites, when he doesn't know what to say about a clip that's going around about him. Hell, Ethan even calls Hasan out for doing this type of behavior towards him.
You got it. You want any more? Call me crazy or hallucinating again? Is that all you got?
I don't even need to do that. I think you're doing that all on your own.
We'll see.
To be fair.
Yeah, we'll see. So do you want to tell me what is your evidence that I work with or talk to or have any association with at all with Destiny?
What? Destiny? What?
What? What? The guy that I talk about fucking obsessively 100 times a day? That is like basically like the Antichrist, the Lord Voldemort in my community? Yeah, you accuse me of working with him, knowing him, talking to him. What is your evidence for that?
Oh, thank you for asking.
Oh, you're very welcome.
Not only is there video footage of you corresponding with someone in your Discord that literally aligns perfectly with Destiny's own Discord, offering clips for you to pull.
That sounds like a stretch.
You've also used clips that are unlisted called Hamasabi when making arguments about my virulent anti-Semitism.
Who gives a I pulled a clip
link that came from a Destiny fan account.
So that's your proof that I work with Destiny.
None of that is relevant.
Okay.
What's relevant is your constant coordination with Destiny's podcast co-host Dan Saltman, who you featured on your context nuke. So yeah,
Did I
don't think it's that ridiculous of a fucking assertion to make, especially when considering the fact that you have been corresponding with Dan Saltman, and he is Destiny's podcast co-host. And the what does he call himself? The general of the Hezbollah, I think that's what they call themselves. The Taliban and the Hezbollah, their mass harassment operation that they engage in. So yeah, I think that is not a ridiculous claim to make at all.
It's actually insane, and it's a really convenient way of discrediting me when I've never spoken to,
I think
worked
you're doing
with,
enough
talked
to
about Destiny in my life.
I don't need to bring that up.
It's a really nice way of you. You know what? I think you're hallucinating, buddy. I think you are you pulled a meme from his subreddit once, and there was a guy in your Discord that's also in his Discord. I think you're hallucinating.
I didn't say any of those things.
You sound fucking unhinged, dude. Are you crashing out, Hasan?
Ethan, I didn't
Hasan, are you crashing out?
I gave you.
Do you have friends who are aware
reason.
of the condition and can help you get the help you need?
Damn. He made Hasan look like a total schizo with that one. I mean, it's super true. The guy talks about destiny like he's the big bad boogeyman or something. Oh, a clip is being passed around that makes me look totally bad? Well, that came from Destiny's Reddit, and they're crazy, so I don't have to engage with that. Anyway, since they're gonna be talking about Destiny, I think we should show this clip of what Destiny and Dan thought about the debate. I think they ended up making a pretty good point. Check this out.
I think these types of events, I think they're actually crucial because for the first time in a long time, Hasan, who has gone unchallenged basically forever because Twitch has made him, their golden
And he
boy.
doesn't talk with it. He doesn't debate with anyone.
And this is what I said about the video essays. I think it's good for video essays occasionally to hop into live comments with people so you can see that like this guy doesn't have any idea about anything he's talking about. And Hasan, I think, got massively exposed. Regardless, even if you thought that Hasan did win by the skin of his teeth, even if you thought that Hasan won this convo, it shouldn't have been Hasan winning on split decision. It should have been a blowout.
Yeah.
No offense to Ethan, but this is a guy who does a comedy podcast for whatever versus Hasan who does politics for 12 hours a day.
And he just gets destroyed by Ethan on
he should
political
be
knowledge.
able to run circles. He should have like 3 facts for every single random thing that because Ethan, no offense to him, I love him or whatever, on the history stuff, there are plenty of things that you could have said.
He did really fucking well on the history
considering, but
he's
Hasan,
not a history guy.
Hasan didn't know anything.
Indeed, it shouldn't have been even close. Hasan should have literally dog-walked Ethan. But instead, it seemed like he was just trying to deflect every point Ethan made because he had no good counters. I mean, they're making a good point. You would expect a guy that does 12 hours of politics a day to easily be able to come up with counters to everything Ethan said. But instead, he just tried to dog whistle about Ethan's mental health like the entire debate just to derail him. And let's just say, Hasan isn't exactly happy with how the public perception is going about the debate. He is in full-blown copium mode because LSF and Twitter is raking his performance over the coals.
So in the upcoming days, you will see an endless sea of brigaders who are like, Ethan was so calm and kept his composure the entire time. TikTok will go crazy with clips going where people are like, what the is this guy's problem about Ethan? Twitter most likely will also be going crazy with clips that are like, what the is this guy's problem with respect to Ethan? But Reddit and Twitch and my Twitch chat will absolutely be brigaded to oblivion with people going, he was so intelligent. You got owned, little bro. You got owned by a guy who is so stupid. That is what they will say. Or are people acting like he lost? No one. It's just an LSF. ELSF Reddit runs the narrative. Get ahead of it. It's very pro-E. Yeah, dude, there's nothing I can do to get ahead of the fucking shitheads that literally run LSF. What do you mean? I know. They are an incredibly fucking racist. Look at this. Look at this. The Papa Gut. Who the fuck is Papa Gut? Like, look, Ethan is in the zone. Destiny. H3 podcast. Hasan comparing Houthi teenager to Anne Frank. Yes, the only thing that they have is this. They are going to keep brigading the LSF subreddit. There's 7,000 people on here right now, and they're going to actively brigade it so that they can make it seem as though this is what actually took place.
Everyone that disagrees with Hasan is incredibly racist. God, this guy just rehashes the same old tired shit every time people call him out. The guy sat there providing no substance for like 80% of this 5-hour debate, and then just try to gaslight Ethan and try to say that everything he was doing was just crazy. Then when the public doesn't think that was a good debate performance from Hasan, he cries and claims racism. Brother, you did this to yourself. Maybe you should have tried to provide more substance and not just deflect from every single good point. Then maybe outsiders' perception of the situation might not have been so poor. Sheesh. What an absolute clusterfuck of a performance. Honestly. Alright guys, I'll probably make another video on the subject because there's just a whole lot to say about this. Anyway, I said my bit. I hope you guys liked the video, and if you did, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe. And if you want to see more content like this, YouTube thinks you're going to like this video right here.